بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. In continuation, this is our fifth class in the book Kitab Salat from a book Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni by Musa Al-Hajjawi, Imam Musa Al-Hajjawi rahimahullah ta'ala, in the book Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni. Last week we stopped off with some of the things that are impermissible with regards to garments, clothing that a person wears when it's time for them to pray. So in continuation of this, the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَيَحْرَمُ اسْتِعْمَالُ مَنْسُوجٍ أَوْ مُمَوَّهٍ بِذَهَبٍ قَبْلَ إِسْتِحَالَتِهِ. So then he says that it is impermissible for a person to use garments that have been knitted with gold, before istihalatihi. So say, for example, if a person has garments and has seams, the seams are threaded with gold, if you will, and before istihala means that it changes from gold to something else. Istihala, it means that it changes from gold to something else. How this is done, Allah knows best. But it could be either through fire or whatever. Anything that takes it away from the gold properties, that takes it away from that metal, and it becomes something else, then this is permissible. But if it's gold, then it's impermissible to have gold knitted things in your clothing. And this is specifically for the men. وَثِيَابُ حَرِيرٍ وَثِيَابُ حَرِيرٍ. ثِيَابُ حَرِيرٍ. Harir is silk. So it is impermissible for a person to have, a man to have clothing that is of silk. Thiyab, that is silk khalis. Silk khalis, it means that it is all silk. It is impermissible for a man. وَمَا هُوَ أَكْثَرُهُ ظُهُورًا عَلَى الذُّكُورِ. Wearing silk garments are impermissible, but the ulama make exceptions. If a person has silk in their clothing and it makes up the majority of their clothing, then this here is impermissible upon the men. So say, for example, you have a garment that is 75% silk, 80% silk, or what have you. In this case, it is impermissible. And he says, La ida stawaya, not if it is equal. So if a person has garments that's 50% silk, 50% cotton, or something like this, then this is permissible. And so, wa li daruratan, or these are exceptions now. So the exception would be if it is istawaya. Istawaya means is half silk, half cotton, or polyester, or what have you. The next one would be aw li daruratan, or out of necessity. Say, for example, a person wears silk out of necessity. There's no other garment for that person to wear. Aw Hikkatan, yani, for example, if they have some type of skin irritation, and due to this skin irritation, they have to wear silk because it's easier on their skin, or maradin, or if they're sick. If there's a sickness that this person uses silk because of a sickness, then this is fine. Or harb, or if they're in a battle and they wear silk, or hashwan. Hashwan is like if a person has a jacket and inside of their jacket it has some type of silk. Or alaman here is like the edge of a person's garment that may also have silk. Arba'u asabi' fama dunu. Arba', yes.
I just want to be clear, it's just for praying that you don't wear silk?
So generally a person shouldn't wear silk, but more specifically a man. For more specifically, it's talking about the salat. Arba'u asabi'. So when they say 4 fingers worth, in other words, it can't be more than 4 fingers put together in the amount. However, anything less than that will be sufficient. Or riqa'an. Riqa'an is like patches, silk patches, no problem. Labinata jayb, or if it's like covering the pockets or something like that. Suju firat, like the edge of a garment. All of these are exceptions of where silk could be used. However, the more important or the most important thing here is that it cannot be the majority of the garment is 100% silk or something like that. وَيُقْرَأُ مُعَصْفَرُ وَمُزَعْفَرُ لِلْرِجَالِ. And it is also hated for men to wear garments that is like safflower, if you will. It's like an orange, reddish type of garment, or muza'farin, or yellow, like an orangish yellow type of garment for the men. And there are different narrations to support this. And this is due to the narration of the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih al-Bukhari, where he says, إنه صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى الرجال عن التزعفر متفق عليه. That the Prophet ﷺ, he prevented the men from wearing these colors, the orange, yellowish colors in their clothing. This was deemed to be impermissible. However, here it says it's yukra. So then we know that this prohibition here is not lil tahrim wa innama huwa lil kiraha. That if we hear a prohibition from the Prophet ﷺ, where it says that he prohibited this or prohibited that, and then if we find the ulama saying that this thing is hated, this means that a prohibition could take one of two meanings. A prohibition in Islam could take one or two meanings. This prohibition could mean that it is hated, not haram, or this prohibition could mean that it is haram. The difference between hated and haram is that if something is haram, if a person does it, they are deserving of Allah's punishment. Whereas if something is hated, a person is not deserving of Allah's punishment, but is not recommended for that person to do. Is that clear?
No. So the color is hated? Or...
It says yukrah. That's the ruling according to Imam Ahmed. The position is that it is hated, not recommended. But this prohibition, they understand this prohibition to be hated, not muharram. And the difference between something that is muharram and something that is hated is very clear and distinct. If something is muharram, this means that you are deserving of Allah's punishment, and like this. طيب. So then, we just finished the shurut, the conditions of La ilaha illallah. We started off by covering a few of them. So from them, we started off with the time. The times of the salat. The second one was what? Does anyone know? The one we just covered was dealing with clothing. Satrul awra, covering the awra. That was just obligatory. So now we're going to cover another part. Ijtinabu an-najasat. Staying away from things that are muharram or najis. Staying away from things that are najis or impure. طيب. اجتناب النجاسات فمن حمل نجاسة لا يعفى عنها. If a person, right now we're still in the book of Salat, and it says staying away from things that are najis or impurities or something that is filthy. Filthy in the meaning that if a person, if it touches a person, it may invalidate their salah. So the Shaykh says, فَمَنْ حَمَلَ نَجَاسَةً لَا يُعْفَى عَنْهَا. If a person is carrying something that is impure while they're praying, لَا يُعْفَى عَنْهَا. Yani the salah is invalid. What are some examples of something that could be a person is carrying something that is impure? What could that be?
What about if they have phones, things on the phone is not?
We're not talking about, we're talking about something that is impure in and of itself. A phone in and of itself is mubah. Yani it's not nothing, unless the materials that the phone is made from is impure, but plastic and with the likes and glass is not impure. But why would you be carrying? Would you be? So one of the examples that they mention is like a qarura. Like, say for example, you have a jug of urine in it. You tightened it up, put it in your pocket, and you're praying with it. This invalidates your salah. Say for example, All right, let's use another example. Suppose you're carrying your child, your son or your daughter, and they're past the age of breastfeeding. Pay attention, they're past the age of breastfeeding, they're eating regular food. Your son has a diaper on, you can smell him, and you're carrying him in the salah. Does this invalidate your salah? Why? Because you're carrying, he has a pamper on and it's in your hand. Right? Right. So it says, فَمَنْ حَمَلَ نَجَاسَةً لَا يُعْفَى عَنْهَا. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he also mentions, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, well, in another authentic hadith, it says, تَنَزَّهُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ فَإِنَّ عَامَةَ عَذَابَ الْقَبْرِ مِنْ. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he says in a hadith that was reported by Al-Thamaraat, he says, تَنَزَّهُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ, يعني, clean yourself after you urinate, فَإِنَّ عَامَةَ عَذَابَ الْقَبْرِ مِنْهُ. For the general punishment for people in the grave is by not cleansing themselves after using the bathroom. وَقَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Mudaththir, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, يعني purify your garments. فَمَنْ حَمَلَ نَجَاسَةً لَا يُعْفَى عَنْهَا. As for a person carrying this form of impurity, then it will not be, a person's salat will not be pardoned. In other words, it will not be accepted from them. The salat will not be accepted. أو لاقاها بثوبه أو بدنه لم تصح صلاته. So let's say for example a person, this urine, a little, piece of the urine got on the throat. Open up the top a little bit and it got on the throat. Does this invalidate the salah? Yes or no? Yes. Or badanihi, or if it got on his body, his skin. Let's say some of the urine touches his skin or her skin. Lam tasih salatu. The salah in this case is not valid. Is that clear? Right. Slide on to the next scenario. Now we have, let's say we have a ground, we're praying outside somewhere, and the ground is filled with najis all over the place. I say the najis is, let's say, what could be urine? Say it's urine everywhere, all over the ground, and it's time for the salah. And so you say you have like a couple buckets of sand, right? And you just pour sand all over the urine. Can you pray on top of this sand even though the urine is underneath it? That's the next issue. Or let's say, for example, it's all urine on the ground. Urine and feces everywhere. But the salat is in. So you have a prayer rug. You put your prayer rug over top of this najis. You don't get rid of it. You put your prayer rug on top of the impurities. And the reason why these issues are mentioned because a person never knows what condition they may find themselves in, and the salah is in. And this also should inform a person, the salah in Islam is very important. It is not to be left off under any circumstances. Under any circumstances, the salah can never be left off. So, in this case, is it permissible to do that? Yes or no? You say yes.
I think I say no.
You say no. طيب. So the ulama, he says, وَإِن طَيَّنَ أَرْضًا نَجِسَةً أَوْ فَرَشَهَا طَاهِرًا كُرِحْ وَصَحَّتْ. So Musa Hajjawi, rahimahullah, Imam Musa Hajjawi, he says, وَإِن طَيَّنَ أَرْضًا نَجِسَةً. If the ground is filled with najasa or impurities, أو فرشها, and you take this ground and you put sand or dirt over it, or you cover this ground with like a rug or something that is pure. This is hated, however the salah is accepted. This is hated, however the salah is accepted. طيب. له لاعتماد على ما لا تصح الصلاة عليه. Is hated because a person should not pray on top of things that are impure. But it's correct because this is because that person that is praying is not actually carrying the impurities. That person is not carrying the impurities. The next scenario. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ بِطَرَفَ مُصَلَّى مُتَّصِلًا. What is the hukum on that? So let's say, for example, if the salat is in, you're out in your car, and you're out in your car, you pull out your prayer rug, and while you were dragging it on the ground, some dog feces got on to the edge of your prayer rug. It's right on top of it. It's on the edge, but it's on top. You lay it down, you're like, dang, some dog messes on my prayer rug. What can I do? Is it permissible in this case for this person to use his prayer rug and pray on it? Even if he prays on it, he's not going to be making sujood. He's not going to be praying on top of the dog mess. Rather, it's on the top left corner, the edge of it. You can see it. And you try to wipe it off, but it's there. Can you pray on that? Yes or no? That's the issue. So the Shaykh Rahimahullah Ta'ala, he says, وَإِنْ كَانَتْ بِطَرَفِ مُصَلَّى مُتَّصِلٍ صَحَّتْ إِنْ لَمْ يَجَرَّ بِمَشْيِهِ. So here, the situation is as follows. He's not carrying it. So in this case, this person is permissible for him or her to pray on this thing if it is connected to the prayer rug that he is using. It's permissible to pray as long as his salat is not on top of the impurity. As long as the salat is not on top of that impurity itself, but rather if it's on the left side of it or what have you, then it should be fine. Right. The next scenario is, say for example, if a person has this impurity, let's say the one that is praying, there is an impurity attached to him. Does that make sense? No. What's an example of an impurity being attached to him? Poop on your hand. Let's say your shoe. It's more realistic. Your shoe. Right? If a person has this impurity attached to his or her shoe, in this case, what is the ruling on that? It is impermissible. And the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he says, وَمَنْ رَأَى عَلَيْهِ نَجَاسَةً بَعْضَ صَلَاتِهِ وَجَهِلَ كَوْنَهَا فِيهَا لَمْ يُعِدْهَا. So here's a mas'ala. The issue is, first of all, the fact that the reason why, if the person has the impurity attached to their shoe or something like that when they're praying, perhaps they didn't take their shoes off, and they pray with their shoes on, and there's impurities on it, and they know it, then this would invalidate the salah. The next case would be, if a man, مَنْ رَأَى عَلَيْهِ نَجَاسَةً, if a person sees that he has impurities on him, after he or she finished praying, وَجَهِلَ كَوْنَهَا فِيهَا لَمْ يُعِدْهَا. If a person is praying, and after the salat, they walk away, and they look down and notice, dang, I have some impurities on my shoe. Do they have to repeat their salat again? Yes or no? Why not?
Only due to the fact that they didn't know.
That's like saying if you prayed and you didn't have wudu, and you realize you didn't have wudu, do you have to go pray again, or are you cool?
I think you'll pray again.
Listen to the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
If a person, after he or she finishes praying, and they're walking away, they're walking through grass or whatever, and they look down, they say, oh man, I got some najis on my shoe. Do they have to go back and pray again? Does it invalidate their salat? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, why?
Because they had it on the bottom, they prayed with it on the bottom of their foot.
Okay, so the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he says, وَجَهِلَ كَوْنُهَا مَوْجُودٌ. Yani, جَهِلَ كَوْنُهَا فِيهَا. But they did not know while they were praying that impurity was on their shoe. So the ulama say in this case, they do not have to repeat their salat. But why? Why don't they have to repeat their salat? That's the question.
Because they didn't know.
Because they didn't know, and because that impurity could have happened after they finished praying.
Because he said he walked away.
Because they walked away. Okay? Is that clear? Because that person, by them walking away, as soon as he made taslim, and then they saw the najasa on their shoe, that's something different. But they finished praying and they walked away and they happened to look down, they said, oh. Okay? Is that clear?
No.
As for wudu, if a person prays the salat, and after they finish praying the salat, they are certain that they did not have wudu, then this nullifies their salat and they have to pray again. They have to go make wudu. Why is that? Because wudu is from the conditions of the salat. Just like purifying yourself is from the conditions of the salat. If you know for a fact that you did not fulfill one of those conditions, then what? Then it nullifies your salat. Just like this here. If you know for a fact that that impurity was on your shoe while you were praying, then it nullifies your salah. وَإِنْ عَلِمَ, now here's another issue. وَإِنْ عَلِمَ أَنَّهَا كَانَتْ فِيهَا لَكِنْ جَهِلَهَا أَوْ نَسِيَهَا أَعَادٍ. Here's another case. If a person knows that أَنَّهَا كَانَتْ فِيهَا, if a person knows that they have some impurities on them, وَكَانَتْ فِيهَا فِي الصَّلَاةِ, and they know that they have impurities on them, and they are in the salat. So say, for example, a person is praying. Then while they're praying, they realize, oh, I have some impurities on me right now, on the bottom of my shoe, on my shoe. Or my sock has this, or whatever the case may be. They realize they have this impurity on them while they are praying. لَكِنْ جَهِلَهَا, but they are ignorant of it, or they forget about it, or they don't know where exactly, or they forget about it. In this case, they have to repeat the salah. This is the position of Imam Ahmed. However, there's another position, anhu tasih la tu'id. There's another position that says that he should, that the salah is correct and they should not repeat the salah again. The questioner should ask, why not? Why don't they have to repeat the salah again if that's another position? Because there was a time when the Prophet ﷺ was praying and he had his shoes on, and he was informed by the angel Jibreel that he had some impurities on his shoe. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he took his shoes off while he was praying and put them on the side. So the ulama, the question will be asked here, he had already started the salah. He was praying and he took his shoes off while he was praying, and there were impurities on the shoes, and he was not commanded to redo the salah over again. So some of them say that based on this position here of the Prophet ﷺ, it would be permissible if a person was praying and they knew they had some impurities to take them off while they were praying and continue with their salat and not start all over again. Is that clear?
No.
Right. The next issue. وَمَنْ جُبِّرَ عَظْمُهُ بِنَجَسٍ لَمْ يَجِبْ قَلْعُهُ مَعَ الضَّرَرِ. The next issue, it says, وَمَنْ جُبِرَ عَظَمُهُ بِنَجَسٍ. If a person has a jabira is a cast. Okay? Say, for example, a person has their hand or their arm in a cast. Whatever they use to wrap it, the material is impermissible. Say, for example, right now I think they use stitches that dissolve that might be made out of pig skin or something like some type of animal that may be impure. It's possible. Right? So let's assume that a person has their arm broken and they have a cast on their arm made out of pig intestines or whatever the case may be, but whatever it is impermissible. All right? Now, mind you, the purpose of this cast is for what reason? To fix a bone. Person has an injury, and this was the best thing available to cure or to help that injury. It says, "Lam yajib qal'uhu ma darar." If a person cannot remove that cast, because if they were to do so, it will cause them further injury, then it is permissible based out of necessity. And if you remember, guys, we mentioned this months ago in a class about the 5 legal maxims in Islam, and one of them was ad-darar Ad-darar yuzal. Or anything that is harmful, it is removed. And there's another qa'idah. There's a qa'idah. Al-dururat tabihu mahdharat biqadriha. This is a principle in Islam. Al-dururat tabihu mahdharat biqadriha. And what this means is, if there is something, a necessity, something that is necessary, it removes the impermissibility out of necessity. If there's a need to do something out of necessity that is impermissible, then it is removed based on what? Based on necessity or need. Not need, let's not confuse need with want. Not something you want. Like in this case, this man has a broken arm. He needs his arm to be healed. In this case, it's permissible for that person to pray with that cast on his or her arm out of necessity. And they say, الضرورات تبيح محظورات بقدرها. بقدرها, it means to the extent that is necessary. Do not exceed or do not transgress the bounds with regards to having that thing that is impermissible. The same thing if a person eats or drinks something that is impermissible, like alcohol. If a person is on the verge of death, they need to drink something, and the only thing that you have there is some alcohol to drink, then they drink that which they need to prevent themselves from dying. Same thing with food that you should not eat. Same thing for anything that is impermissible. If a Muslim were to indulge in it out of necessity to what? Sustain their life, their safety, and so on and so forth, then in this case it will be permissible based on necessity. Based on necessity. Wherein that thing in and of itself is still haram. La shak. It's still haram, but in this case there's an exception to use that haram thing out of necessity. But it doesn't change the ruling of what it is. واضح؟ طيب. وما سقط منه من عضو أو سن فطاهر. And this is another issue that the scholars mention. Let's say, for example, and they mention all types of situations or scenarios. So let's use an example. A person is sawing something. You're cutting a tree, some wood, and you cut your fingers off. وَيَذُ بِاللَّهِ. A person cuts their fingers off. Their fingers fall on the ground that are cut off. Are those fingers considered to be impure, najis, or not? So the ulama, or let's say a person's tooth falls out their mouth. You bite something, your tooth is stuck in the apple. Those teeth that come out of your mouth and any limbs or body parts that come off of your body, are they considered to be najis or not? La. They're all pure. They're all pure. And what is the fiqh for mentioning that in this bab here? Allah knows best. I don't know. But it's mentioned here in this chapter. And the next issue it says, وَلَا تَصِحُّ الصَّلَاةُ فِي مَقْبَرَةٍ وَحُشْوٍ وَحَمَامٍ وَأَعْطَانِ إِبْلٍ وَمَقْصُوبٍ وَأَصْطِحَتِهَا وَتَصِحُّ إِلَيْهَا وَلَا تَصِحُّ الْفَرِيدَةُ فِي الْكَعْبَةِ وَلَا فَوْقَهَا وَتَصِحُّ النَّافِلَةِ بِاسْتِقْبَالِ شَاخِصٍ مِنْهَا. This is the last thing we're going to cover tonight, inshallah. And the Shaykh Rahimahullah Ta'ala, he says here, وَلَا تَصِحُّ الصَّلَاةُ فِي مَقْبَرَةٍ. It is not permissible for a Muslim to pray a salah inside of a grave. At a graveyard is not permissible. A maqbara, fi maqbara. You cannot pray in a grave. You cannot pray in the grave. This is not permissible. Nor mirhat. Al-hushwan is like a place where a toilet is. You cannot pray in a place where there's a toilet. So for example, if a person is in the bathroom in their home, they go inside the bathroom and the toilet is there, you cannot pray in these places. Huh?
Now, unless you confine to that place?
That's different. Shuf ya akhi, everything that we're mentioning here, this is the general rule of thumb. Okay? There are always exceptions, but laws and rules are not based on exceptions. They're always based on the norms. So the norm is that most people aren't confined to these areas. So you can't, one thing that is very important that we have to understand, all laws and all regulations that are in place in general are for the general masses. Most laws are not written or put in place for the exceptions. However, there are exceptions, but it's a case-by-case basis. If a person is in a situation, this falls under what? What did we mention earlier? If they're in a place, they can't get out of this place, and say they're locked in the bathroom, they can't get out, the salat is in, it's only 20 minutes left for the salat, what do? Do they not pray? No, they pray. But what if it's in a place like this, that's muharram, you can't play in? Why is it permissible for them to pray there? Out of what? Out of necessity. You see? So then Islam is easy. It's not difficult. We always have to be able to look at these principles and make them applicable, in their proper places. So then, it is not permissible for a person to pray where there is toilets. Where there are toilets. Or hammam. Hammam are places like showers. Wa'atani iblin. Or a place where camels gather. A place where camels gather. Or maghsulbin. Let's say, for example, this masjid here was stolen by a group of people. They took the masjid over. It's not permissible to pray in places that are stolen. Maghsulbin. Somebody stole your house. Right? It was a thing here in this city. People steal houses. Go down to City Hall and change the right paperwork and put their name on it and steal your house. It's not permissible to pray in these places that have been stolen. وَأَصْلِحَتِهَا. Nor is it permissible to pray on the roofs of things that are stolen, or the roof of a grave, or the roof of the bathroom, or the places where the toilets are, so on and so forth, or the roof of the barn where the camels are. And this is due to the ulama saying what is impermissible to pray in, that also on top of it is also impermissible to pray on. وَتَصِحُّ إِلَيْهَا. But it is permissible to pray towards these things. Towards them, but not in them or on them. Is that clear? Towards them, but not in them or on them. وَلَا تَصِحُّ الْفَرِيدَةُ فِي الْكَعْبَةِ. And it is not permissible to pray an obligatory prayer inside the Kaaba. The Kaaba, ikhwan, if you open up the door, there's a room. They have like pots and pans hanging in there. From what I heard, I didn't get the opportunity to go in. But some brothers I know actually went inside the Kaaba. They said it's like pots and pans or what have you. Very old stuff. It is not, you cannot pray, they say. And this is something that the ulama mentioned many times, that it is not permissible for a person to pray inside of the Kaaba an obligatory prayer. So for example, Fajr, Maghrib, Asr, Isha, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha, you cannot pray inside of the Kaaba a farida, an obligatory prayer. However, a person can pray a sunnah prayer inside of the Kaaba or on top of the Kaaba. وَلَا فَوْقَهَا وَتَصِحُّ النَّافِلَةُ بِاسْتِقْبَالِ شَاخِصٍ مِنْهَا. And it is also permissible to pray a sunnah prayer that is towards an edge or piece of the Kaaba. Maybe not directly facing it, but an edge of the Kaaba is permissible to pray towards that. And insha'Allah ta'ala, we're going to stop our class. The next thing when we pick back up will be minha istiqbal al-qibla. From the conditions of the salat, the next thing we'll be covering is facing the qibla. Facing the qibla and moving forward. This is when we return back to the book of Salat, starting this Saturday. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll be starting Kitab al-Siyam. And we'll be doing that 2 days out of the week. We'll do it Saturday, inshallah, after Fajr, and Monday after Maghrib. The goal is to finish Kitab al-Siyam, the book of Salat, the book of fasting, and Zakat al-Fitr before Ramadan comes in. And we have about 6 weeks, which gives us about 6 weeks to finish the book of fasting and Zakat al-Fitr. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we'll be covering that once again. We'll be covering that 2 days out of the week. It'll be a continuous class. Hopefully we will get done before Ramadan. And the purpose of which, so that people can understand how to fast, what are they supposed to do, what are some of the things that will break the fast that are mu'assar, things that are modern. How do you, if you're sick, what do you do, so on and so forth. So the goal is to get everyone prepared so that when Ramadan comes, A person can have more knowledge about how they're supposed to conduct themselves. What is a fast? How do you recognize a fast? So on and so forth. Are there any questions?
I do have a question. I just want to know why you can't pray inside the Kaaba.
Why you can't pray inside the Kaaba? I didn't say you couldn't pray inside the Kaaba.
The obligatory.
I said obligatory prayer. Because the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it. But the fiqh behind it, Allah knows best. I don't know. Like why? Why can't you pray an obligatory prayer inside the Kaaba? Allah knows best. If you remember, we said that rulings in Islam are of two types. Rulings in Islam are of two types. Ta'abbudi or mu'allal. Ta'abbudi, it means that we don't know the reason for the legislation, we hear and we obey. If something is mu'allal, this means that the reason for the legislation is known. And if the reason is known, then we can look at something else and compare it to that. This is not for me and you. These are people that are scholars. They do this. So then, just like if a dog licks into your bowl, why do you have to wash it 7 times and 1 time with dirt or soap? What's the reason for that? Why 7? Why not 3? Why not 4? Why not 9? Why 7? We don't know. None of the ulama mentioned the reason of which is known, the number 7. Therefore, they say we hear and we obey, and you cannot compare that and use that ruling for something else. Let's say, for example, if a dog licks your leg, and you say, based on washing the bowl out 7 times, that means I can wash my leg 7 times. La. There's no evidence to support that. Because the reason why 7 is used is unknown. Okay? So then, in Islam, we have rulings that are, the reason for those rulings are known, so therefore you can apply that ruling to something else. And there are other rulings in Islam where the reasons for the rulings are unknown. And if it is unknown, then we cannot apply that ruling to something else because we don't know the reason for its legislation to begin with. Is that clear?
No.
Fine. Any other questions, inshallah?
No, the wet nose of the dog nudges.
Is the wet nose of the dog najis? Taib yahi. Many of the ulama consider the whole dog to be najis. Some of the ulama consider the tongue to be najis. Some of the ulama don't consider the dog to be najis at all, just the tongue, or just the licking. Some of them say no, the dog is not najis. You just can't, if a dog bites on something, you just have to wash it, but the dog's not najis. Allah knows best. Allah knows best. However, we do find many of the scholars considering the dog itself, all of it to be najis, and Allah knows best. Allah knows best. Why is the dog considered najis? Allah knows best. Allahu a'lam. One of the reasons could be that because if the dog licks in the bowl, based on this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you have to wash it out 7 times. But some of the people that say that the dog is not najis from the ulama, and from them is Imam Malik. We have a chapter in Islam called Bab al-Sayd, the chapter of hunting. And so dogs are used to hunt food. So if you grab a dog and say Bismillah and let the dog go, the dog will get the animal, bring it back, and the dog's teeth is in the animal. So in this case, does this mean that the dog is najis? Some of them say no. And so this is the position of Imam Malik and many of the other ulama, and Allah knows best.
Out of all things, the dog, like if the dog is in your home, you just go into there and everything like that. I never stood up.
So the question is, why is the dog considered najis? Hold on, I don't know. Allah knows best.
If a dog do lick you, what do you
Just wash it off. We're not going to say 7 times because there's no evidence to support that. Play it.
Or you got a garment on and the dog jump on you.
If I have a what?
Like say you go outside and you walking past a dog in the street and you going to pray.
Right.
And the dogs happen to come run up and jump on you.
So if you consider a dog to be najis and a dog licks on your clothes and all of that, you might want to just, take some water, rinse it off or whatever, and keep it moving.
But if you take the other where the dog is not, then you don't have to?
I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say do that. Listen, some of the ulama, they will tell a khuruj min al-khilaf awla. Staying away from differences of opinion is better. So if a dog licks on I'm not saying, I'm going to take the position that it's not net. Then you might be taking a chance that your salat is invalid. It's just better just wipe it off and keep it moving. There's no difference of opinion if you wipe off something that might be najis. Pay attention to that. There's no difference of opinion about your salat being accepted if you wipe off something that some of the ulama say is najis and some of them say it's not. But none of them are going to tell you that it's haram to wipe it off. Wipe it off, go pray, and that way free your mind of any concerns with regards to that. And this is something that we learn from the scholars. Khuruj min al-khilaf awla. Staying away from differences of opinion is better. Khalas? We'll stop with that, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.